Terminator drones shut down multiple airports, and militaries are on high alert. Hey, everybody, Rex Bear Leak Project. Buckle up, Buttercup. Let's go, because we've got a lot to talk about. So for the past several days, whoa, there we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, past several days, a multitude of drone incursions, unidentified aerial vehicles over airports, military bases. And remember when this was kind of the norm at the end of 2024, throughout 2025, there were 17 days of mysterious drones over Langley. And now we've got activity in Denmark, Norway, and France. Did you know that September 11th last year, a Chinese airport was shut down because of mysterious drone activity? So it's not just countries in Europe. It's not just America, China as well. But what about Russia? What about Russia? We're going to talk about it. We've got a timeline. I've got some timelines to share with you. And this is very interesting because if you didn't watch the podcast yesterday, or if you didn't hear about it, Pete Hegseth, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, has unexpectedly summoned hundreds of senior military officers to have I don't know what they're going to do, but a meeting at Quantico, generals, admirals, 1-star and up, as well as top military advisors. No explanation was given. And then recently, President Trump said something along the lines of, if Russia flies over NATO airspace, NATO should shoot them down. Are we getting ready for global conflict, or is this just more carrot at the end of the stick? Well, don't be scared. Be prepared. We're going to talk about it. And let's get into the latest reports of these drones flying over airports. And officials are calling this hybrid warfare. They're calling it hybrid warfare. So, real quick, I want to give a shout out to Boomer Boost. So, boomerboost.com, use the code REX20, get 20% off. I've got 3 more of these jars upstairs, and even though they are a sponsor, I pay for this stuff, and I take it daily. I think this stuff is awesome. I take it with the Gladiator barley, and just 2 scoops, mix it up in some water, take a drink, rock and roll. So the testimonials, like, take my word for it and read the testimonials. You'll love it. This stuff's amazing. Just go to boomerboost.com, use the code REX20, get a 20% discount. They have a multitude of products, amazing products, the best of the best in cutting edge supplementation. Anyway, all right. So quick shameless plug. Now let's get back into the podcast, shall we? Drones have shut down Copenhagen Airport, being flown by capable operators, Danish police say, disrupting flights at a second Danish airport several days later. Aalborg has reopened after closures due to suspected drone activity. Well, let's get into this and let's look at the characteristics, shall we? And how's your day going? And check us out over on Rumble. We do live streams on Rumble. We're doing live streams on Rumble, totally free. It'll take you 90 seconds. Do me a huge favor, jump over to Rumble, click the subscribe button. Literally, it'll take you 90 seconds to sign up, totally free. And they're pretty good at sending notifications to our subscribers there. So, yeah. Anyway, all right, so Rumble, and then we do exclusive stuff on Patreon. But let me read this to you. We've had a multitude of incidents and a multitude of airports. Aalborg Airport was temporarily shut down because of unauthorized drones in their airspace. Copenhagen Airport also experienced a shutdown for 4 hours after drones were sighted hovering in its airspace. Billund Airport was closed after a drone sighting. Authorities reported drone sightings near airports and military air bases in Esbjerg, Sanderborg, and Skridstrup. These drone incursions have been described by Danish officials as hybrid attacks aimed at sowing fear. You can read about that at Reuters. The Danish government has raised the possibility of invoking NATO's Article 4 in response and is boosting efforts to counter drone measures, AP News. Denmark has also informed NATO allies that the drone incursions may have been orchestrated by state actors through definitive attribution, or though definitive attribution is still undetermined. Reuters. In Poland, prior to the recent wave that we're dealing with right now in the news, airspace over several airports, including Warsaw International, Warsaw, Modlin, Rzeszów, Jasenoka, Lublin, was also closed amid a Russian drone incursion, Wikipedia. In Norway, a drone was seized near Oslo's airport around the same period, though it has not been definitively linked to the Danish incidents. Let's go back to September 22nd. France, military base. Unidentified drones were spotted flying over the Mourmelin-le-Grand military base in the Marne department in northeastern France. The French authorities described the drones as small devices, not drones operated by the military, and called the incident exceptional. So far, there's no confirmed evidence of foreign interference or a link to the Danish airport shutdowns. However, investigations are ongoing. So we've got September 22nd, the Mourmelin-le-Grand military camp in the Marne department, northeastern France. It's a large military area, about 10,000 hectares, used for maneuvering and other military training. There is an associated military base, which is the 501st Tank Regiment presence, and the facility has been used in recent years for training Ukraine soldiers under the Champagne Task Force. Interesting. Notice that this is the same area that they have trained Ukrainian soldiers, and they're spotting drones over that area. Maybe there's a link. Not definitive, maybe. So the devices were described as small devices, not large drones, like a lot of the reports that we're getting. A lot of the reports, the drones are, they say, like according to eyewitnesses, about the size of a small SUV. However, I've got a family member that runs the entire drone department in a certain city in Alabama. I'll just leave it at that. But he runs the whole drone department, and I talked to him about the drone incursions and the reports where people were claiming to see drones the size of SUVs over certain locations. And he said that it's very difficult to tell the size of these drones when they're at a certain height. So they could have been right, but they also could have been wrong. And we talked about a lot of things about these drones, and he seems to think that a lot of stuff that was taking place when the drones were big in the media, at least at certain areas, he thinks a lot of it was just, people trying to freak other people out with hobby drones and stuff. But he didn't say there weren't mysterious drones in areas that there shouldn't be. I just don't think he can talk about that kind of stuff. But anyway, so the devices described as small devices, not large drones. That's one thing that's a little bit different. And upon detecting the drones, security measures at the base were heightened. A report was filed with local military, police, and law enforcement per French protocol, and authorities are investigating the breach. And they're still attempting to identify the origin, the flight path, the motive, and whether the drones had surveillance or disruptive intent. Well, what do you think? Now, this is one incident of many. There have been a multitude of incursions of these drones and mysterious drones and other drones that have cutting edge technologies that you don't get with hobby drones. So when we read these reports about drones that can shoot out of the water, track the Coast Guard, and then disappear in the water again. Do you remember last year when there was that guy that basically was some special forces dude, and he got taken out in a Tesla, I think, or a Cybertruck. And he was making these claims that a lot of these drones that we were seeing or that were being reported were actually Chinese that had anti-gravity technology. Do you remember that? I wonder if there's any truth to that. or if it's just another carrot at the end of the stick. You know, like, well, let's say this happened. Let's make this the official story. I don't know. I question everything, but very interesting, because if China does have anti-gravity technology, wow. Could you imagine the type of skirmishes that could take place? Make you question, do we have the same type of technology as well? I don't know. Stuff's probably pretty black site classified technology, if it even exists. But it does seem like there's these hybrid warfare tactics going on, because we're dealing with also not only these drones shutting down airports, flying over very sensitive military sites. I think 17 days over Langley. And let's get back to this. Let's go back to these drones. So, Operation Spiderweb. This is Ukraine, Russia. Operation Spiderweb, June 2025. A major coordinated drone strike by Ukrainian forces targeted multiple Russian air bases using drones launched covertly. The drones reportedly struck bomber fleets, radar assets, and caused damage to military infrastructure. Then, this month, drone overflights in Denmark near military air bases. During the recent wave of drone incursions in Denmark, drones were reportedly sighted near Skræstrup Air Base, which hosts F-16 and F-35 aircraft. The Danish government described the activity as part of a hybrid attack, Business Insider. And then France, Mormelin-le-Grand military base. Unidentified small drones reportedly flying over the French military base, which also houses the 501st Tank Regiment and has been used for Ukrainian troop training. Well, what about the UK? U.S. Air Force bases in the UK, November 2024. Several small drones were detected flying over U.S. Air Force bases in England, including the RAF Lakenheath, RAF Mildenhall, RAF Feltwell, and RAF Fairford. No claimants or conclusive attribution has been reported, AP News. Who do you think was flying their drones over those areas? And there's a lot of sensitive stuff out there, so you could catalog everything. And I wonder if they have ways to wirelessly drop some type of electronic interference to where these packets could be triggered later. So you fly over these air bases and then you drop these packets, and then 6 months later you activate them wirelessly. Do they have the ability to do that? Oh, they just flew over. They were just, kind of showing off their stuff. We don't know what it is. That goes up the ladder. That's compartmentalized. What can they put on these drones? And what is the cause and effect? Are these drones an adversary that is gathering all the data and all the intel on all these bases, like what's there, who's there, capturing as much information as it can for intelligence, as well as potentially electronic? And is it putting stuff out there that can be activated months later through some type of wireless means or some type of timer? Maybe they've got timers. At this time, activate. Multiple drone attacks targeted Iraqi military bases, U.S. joint bases, infrastructure. In particular, drones struck radar installations and air bases and holdings near Baghdad. The U.S. claimed to intercept several of the attacking drones. So we've got Operation Spiderweb. That was a very effective operation that Ukraine launched. And the amount of money in comparison to damage, that was a very successful campaign. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of intel briefings and advanced training about that type of operation, how to prevent it, and then how to build upon it. We're dealing with this stuff right now in Denmark, as well as Skræstrup, the air base in Denmark, France, and then back Langley Air Force. Drones invaded the skies over Langley Air Force Base in Virginia over 17 nights. Notice the number 17 there, causing precautionary relocation of advanced fighter jets Also, other U.S. bases, California, New Jersey, have reported drones overflight or incursions. Iraq, the UK, Israel, the Golani Brigade training base. A Hezbollah drone or drones struck the Zarit Barraks Golani Brigade training base. So the analytic observations and trends is going towards hybrid gray zone use. Many of these incidents are not full-scale attacks, but rather probing, surveillance, or harassment. So the term hybrid attack has been used by Danish authorities to characterize drone incursions that sit between peacetime and kinetic conflict. Small drones, like FPV drones or kamikaze types, are proving effective at penetrating air defenses, or at least testing them. The damage can be significant even without massive launches. And in many cases, states hesitate to publicly assign blame given the risk of escalation or diplomatic backlash, and investigations, military intelligence often proceed quietly. Military and defense organizations are increasingly adjusting doctrine, rules of engagement, and investing in counter-UAV systems, radar, jamming, interceptor drones to respond to such threats, as well as these new like nets. And I've seen some of the contracts for this new anti-drone netting at certain bases, which I think is very smart, because you're also going to have to figure out if you can keep out these time-lapsed mechanisms for electronic disruption. The U.S. held war games around how to defend bases from drone attacks, geographic spread, and strategic significance. In Europe, the spike in drone incidents coincides with heightened tensions around Eastern Europe. In the Middle East and Iraq, proxy warfare and asymmetric tactics make drone strikes on bases more common. And the Russia-Ukraine conflict has become a proving ground for drones being used against strategic air bases. What else have like hybrid stuff, right? Let's talk about some more situations here. Major incidents this month. Airports. Multiple major European airports were disrupted when hackers targeted the check-in and boarding systems provided by Collins Aerospace. Heathrow, Brussels, Berlin were among the impacted airports. The attack involved the Muse software, which is used for check-in and boarding gate allocation, and possibly the ARINC AVNet network. ENISA and the EU Cybersecurity Agency confirmed it a ransomware-style cyber attack. One suspect was arrested in West Sussex in the UK in connection with the incident. The ransomware used is suspected to be Hardbit in at least this case, and the outages forced many airports to revert to manual check-in and boarding procedures. Also, December 2024, Italy, a pro-Russian hacker group claimed responsibility for a DDoS attack on multiple Italian institutions, including Milan's airports. The attacks disrupted web services, but it did not appear to shut down flight operations. Reuters. And then earlier in 2024 and mid-2025, there's been smaller, less publicized incidents involving aviation airport IT systems. Many lacked the scale or confirmation to appear in major news coverage. Also, what about how many airplane crashes did they report in the news at the beginning of this year that seemed completely out of the normal? And then the news was attempting to blame it on air traffic control, not having enough employees, or not being trained good enough. It seemed to be this whole like political thing. But was that really the culprit? Or was there something else going on behind the scenes? Now, this is pure speculation as of now, because I haven't done anything publicly to confirm this. But could there have been some type of GPS jamming or spoofing or electronic hybrid warfare tactics going on behind the scenes that caused these events to take place? And are they able to do it without an electronic paper trail? That's what was coming into my mind when I was watching all of this in the news. But the news didn't say that. So did anybody else think the same thing? Like, is there something more than just all of a sudden the air traffic control people have a really bad year? Like they have a really bad month at all of these locations. It just seems to be all of a sudden, I don't know, but I want to hear your thoughts on that. So there are some observations and patterns, single point of failure, dependency risk, nanu. The Collins-Muse incident underscores how critical shared software or infrastructure used across many airports can become a target. A breach at a vendor cascades to multiple airports. And how about the airports that were shut down previous to that, or an airlines had to shut down because of the software that it was using? I'll have to look that up again. I totally forgot the name of that. There's so much going on. When you have a system that is all linked together, or you have millions of people that rely on certain software linked to one system, that better be extremely secure. And some of the vulnerabilities that have came out with these situations that we read about in the news are quite alarming. Now let's get into the GPS jamming, GNSS interference incidents affecting aviation, airports, approaches, or military flights in the past 12 months. I'm going to do a screen share with you on this. Let's jump over to that. Key incidents and examples. Ryanair diversion, Vilnius, Warsaw. Its approach to Vilnius because of GPS signal interference and diverted to Warsaw. Lithuanian Air Navigation Authority logged hundreds of GPS interference events in recent months. Reuters. Then we've got the wider Baltic Northern Europe surge 2024-2025. Pilots and airlines have reported many GPS anomalies over the Baltic and adjacent areas. Estonia and Finland publicly accused Russia of jamming navigation interference in the region. Russia denies it. Aviation groups and news outlets documented a sharp year-on-year rise in reported GPS problems. Then you've got Spanish defense aircraft disturbances near Kaliningrad, September of this year. A Spanish defense aircraft experienced GPS disruption flying near Kaliningrad. Spanish authorities said such interference is common in the region and highlighted that military aircraft can fall back on encrypted navigation systems. Multiple airline regional reports and diversions. So there's been, besides the Ryanair case, other flights in the region, diversions, aborted approaches, spurious GPS positions were recorded and investigated by national aviation authorities. Industry databases and flight logs show a big uptick in reported GNSS anomalies. I wonder how many of the plane crashes that took place this year, is there anything connecting it to this right here, these GPS situations? So incidents have increased substantially. Operational impacts vary from nuisance to safety risk. Absolutely. Industry and regulators are responding. So here's some links. Reuters, Arion, IATA. What else we got? Yeah, look at this. This is showing the GPS jamming where it's the worst. And you can see the color chart. So green is low, red is high, yellow is medium. And there's a lot of activity from Moldova all the way down into Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Turkey, Georgia. Side of Germany, we got Denmark, Norway right there, Estonia, Romania, Istanbul, Finland. We got this pocket. Flight radar, GPS jamming map. Wow. Past 12 months, here's a timeline. Near Russia, Estonia, Lithuania, Bulgaria, the Baltic. Industry reports indicate a sharp increase in spoofing interference events. IATA reported a 500% spike in GPS spoofing year over year. So it goes on to say that a lot of these incidents aren't outright airport jamming, but in-flight GPS interference. Some are attributed to spoofing, false signals, rather than pure jamming. And the Russian border region, the Baltic, is a hotspot. This article just came out. A Russian Navy ship was caught lurking off of Denmark's coast as drones were shutting down airspace. The Russian landing ship Alexander Schabelin, part of the Baltic fleet, was observed off Denmark's coast, and it had its automatic identification system turned off, according to the article, making it harder to detect via standard maritime tracking systems. So that's the insider. Journalists from Extra Bladet, a Danish media outlet, chartered a helicopter and located the vessel near the island off of Langley, approximately 12 kilometers from the southern tip of the island. Now, remember, this is same time frame. Just previously, large drones shut down airspace in Denmark, and then they find a Russian ship not too far away, and it's got its automatic identification system shut off. Danish media reporting indicates that the Danish armed forces were aware of the ship's presence in that location. However, they've made few public comments so far. Some analysts speculate the ship's presence could serve roles as observation, monitoring of drone launch activity, or maritime patterns, diversionary or support role to mask the true launch platforms, like shadow vessels, potentially submarines, and a staging of relay position for communications or logistics support to vessels suspected of launching drones. So there's no public confirmed proof yet that any Russian ship has launched the drones or directly participated in their deployment. The use of stealthy tactics like turning off AIS is suspicious and consistent with attempts to evade maritime surveillance, but not sufficient alone to prove a hostile act. So, all right. A lot of people were concerned about the most recent news that described just Wednesday, NORAD detected and tracked 4 Russian warplanes operating in the Alaskan ADIS. The aircraft comprised two 95 strategic bombers and 2 Su-35 fighters. NORAD scrambled an E-3 Sentry, 4 F-16s, and 4 KC-135 tanker aircraft to intercept and positively identify those Russian planes. And the Russian planes did not cross into U.S. sovereign airspace. They remained in international airspace within the ADIS. According to NORAD and U.S. officials, such flights occur regularly in the Alaskan ADIS, and this was the 9th such incident of Russian aircraft in the Alaskan ADIS this year. Now, it did happen shortly after President Trump said that NATO should shoot down Russian craft in their airspace. So to me, it seems like, well, okay, well, we're gonna get really close, but we do it regularly anyway. So these incursions test U.S. and Canadian readiness in the Arctic North Pacific region, particularly given climate change, opening sea routes, and strategic competition in the Arctic. They serve as strategic messaging and probing by Russia, demonstrating capability, willingness to operate near U.S. territory, and possibly gathering intelligence. Yeah, exactly. Even if not violating sovereign airspace, they increase risk, and patterns of repeated incursions can influence defense posture, etc. If you go over the past 24 months, so let's go back 2 years and look at a lot of the major reports of these drones flying over sensitive locations. Europe, Denmark, September, France, the United Kingdom, Germany. A lot of these happened this month, but the United Kingdom, the RAF bases, that was November of 2024. Langley, 2024, 2025. There were also at the Marine Corps base, Camp Pendleton, Hill Air Force Base, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Langley Air Force Base, Vandenberg Space Force Base, Naval Weapons Station, Earl, New Jersey, Picatinny Arsenal in New Jersey, the NAS JRB Fort Worth in Texas, Air Force Plant 42 in Palmdale, California. Also, I think out there by Area 51, NORAD told Congress there was 350 drone incursions over 100 U.S. military bases in 2024. Wow. Federal reviews later concluded that some Northeast sightings were manned aircraft and misidentified. What do they look like? We've got everything from small multi-rotors, quadcopter type, fixed wing. Many eyewitness accounts describe small drones with visible lights. Some reports in New Jersey mention large drones up to 6 feet across. Fixed wing aircraft, at least one of those was a fixed wing aircraft operating at night in the same area. Mixed types at the major bases. So there's no consistent make or model or descriptions at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base shutdown or the Langley. At Plant 42 in Palmdale, California, the mysterious drone incursions did trigger temporary flight restrictions as well. I think it's interesting that there were 17 nights over Langley. And then if you go back to, I think it was in the 50s, over DC, there were 17 nights of mysterious UAPs. And like the timeline, there's very interesting timelines. The way things work, it seems like something behind the scenes with these with the quantum mechanics of the universe, numbers and dates seem to be very significant. The East Coast reports describe hovering bright lights, low-flying paths, and we still haven't seen the footage yet that the Coast Guard, because allegedly they picked up video footage, or a security guard picked up footage that the Coast Guard, these mysterious drones or UAPs swarming a Coast Guard ship. We never saw the footage of that. I'm wondering if we could get that footage, because that would be interesting to see what those things do. I don't think they're alien at all. I think that that's just super cutting edge technologies. Patterns include loitering over perimeters, approach paths, high value facilities, weapons depots, R&D plants, fighter bases. That's recon probing behavior. Confirmed outcomes include diverting, relocating aircraft, like at Langley, temporary airspace closures, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Plant 42. Agencies surge detection tech and visual observers during the 2024 Northeast wave. In New Jersey, the FBI noted reports that drones operated near Coast Guard and other sensitive areas. Authorities asked the public for media to aid identification. Well, show it to us then. Yeah, some were obviously misidentified. So this is what we know from open source material. Because I heard reports about people in their cars and these drones, these mysterious drones would fly over their cars, and then the clocks would stop and their navigation and their electronics would stop. I thought that was kind of interesting because if you go back and read some of the early cases, like in the 50s and 60s, where people claimed to be abducted by ETs or something, they would say that the electronics would stop and things would, like their car would stop, their radio would stop, stuff like that. So I'm wondering if it's the same type of technology, potentially the same type of technology. Interesting to think about. But this is what is documented in open source material. Small drones can carry portable jammers that interfere with GPS signals in a small radius. That can disrupt aircraft navigation or a consumer device's location accuracy. It doesn't turn off clocks. It only degrades the time position data derived from GPS. As an example, hand-carried jammers used by militaries can block GPS within a few hundred meters. In the Russia-Ukraine war, FPV drones sometimes carry spoofers to blind enemy drones and GPS. There's also radio frequency interference. Hobby drones and modified drones can emit high-power RF that interferes with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cell signals, or other electronics in their immediate vicinity, especially if equipped with illegal transmitters. Then there's EMP capabilities, electromagnetic pulses. There are prototypes of EMP drones for military use, but nothing in the public record indicates such systems have been used over US or European bases. EMP payloads that would actually knock out electronics are bulky and highly restricted. So there's no credible reports, open source, of clocks shutting off per se, but there are reports of weird electronic interference taking place. So I think that's pretty interesting. Consumer devices like phones or car nav units rely on GPS for time. So if GPS is jammed, the clock can freeze or drift. It looks like the clock stopped, but it's really just losing GPS time sync. Drones with high-power video transmitters or illegal mods can generate local RF noise that interferes with garage doors, Wi-Fi, baby monitors, etc. This is common in hobbyist RF forums. Confirmation bias in a high alert situation, military-based nighttime sightings, observations may associate any glitch with the nearby drone. So this is also very important in hybrid tactics. Major subsea cable incidents the past 12, 24 months here. Let's go back and look at a timeline. We've got both submarine telecom cables were cut and disrupted nearly simultaneously, November 17th and 18th of 2024. The Baltic Sea, the BCS East-West Interlink, Lithuania and Sweden, Finland, Germany, and damage clearly from an external physical force. Some officials suspect sabotage. Oh, you don't say. December 25, 2024, Gulf of Finland, the Baltic region, S-Link 2 power cable, telecom cables between Finland and Estonia. You seeing a pattern here? The S-Link 2, a submarine power link, was cut at the same time. Phone data cables were also severed. Investigators suspect the oil tanker Eagle S dragged its anchor across the seabed, causing ruptures. Early September of this year, the Red Sea region, Subsea telecom internet cables. Near Jeddah and Saudi Arabia, underwater cables were cut, resulting in degraded internet connectivity, increased latency in parts of the Middle East and Asia. Experts suggest a merchant ship dragging its anchor might have severed the cables, or that anchor dragging is a plausible accidental cause. It was just an accident. We were fishing for cutting cables. Shut up, Beavis. All right. February 2024. Asia, Middle East, Europe, AAE1. Multiple damage incidents, including cut segments impacting 25% of the traffic between Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. possible damage from ships dragging anchors or other maritime accidents. Some uncertainty remains. Yeah, it was just, all of a sudden everybody's messing up with their anchors. Sorry about that. We forgot. We just dragged it across the entire seabed. We took a nap. It did it on its own. I don't know how that happened. I thought it was up. I can't explain it. Swedish investigations. February of this year, Swedish authorities opened a probe into suspected sabotage of an undersea telecom cable in the Baltic Sea economic zone of Gotland. The cable affected was part of the C-Lion 1 line, though damage was minor and functionally maintained. The Finnish operator Senia also reported continued damage events to Sea Lion in 2025, including a fault east of Gotland with suspicions of sabotage. Then the Eagle S tanker. Finland brought criminal charges against the captain and 2 senior officers of Eagle S, implicating them in the December 2024 cable damage of the Estlink 2 telecom links. Security analysis warns that geopolitical tensions increase the likelihood of state-sponsored sabotage against submarine cable infrastructure. Yeah, really? You don't say. Then it goes on to say Russian spy deep-sea vessels like the Yantar have been observed near European subsea cables, mapping, surveilling, and potentially preparing for interference. So there you go. Pretty exciting, right? We live in exciting times. National Guard being rolled out on city streets. Exit calling emergency meetings at Quantico. Reporters at the Pentagon are told they have to report to them first before they report any news, even if it's unclassified. Happy camps, data centers towering over residential zones. California presenting a bill that could potentially eliminate free speech, in my opinion. We need to get a lawyer on that to hear what they have to say about it. I mean, it's wild times. Wild times. Signs in the heavens, if you look at the stars and the planetary alignments, that's what I'm referring to, that are discussed in, for example, the book of Revelation or other scriptures that are available for people to read. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting to look at some of the metaphors and the synchronicities and the timelines. And yeah, buckle up, right? So it's kind of exciting. Oh, hey, everybody. Hey, thanks for joining us on Rumble and YouTube. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Beautiful day in the neighborhood. And you can still go out and spend $5 on a coffee and $15 on a hamburger and fries now. Or you could just grow your own food. Yeah. Grow your own food. That's a concept. Did you know you can do that? I wonder if in the near future, like, generations aren't even going to know that's a possibility. They're just going to think you have to, like, where does food come from, Mom? It comes from the store, dear. Like, oh, back in my day, we could grow food. Grow food? How do you do? You can grow food? It's all going to be 3D printed. You're going to have to, if you eat steak in the future, it's going to have to be from your own stem cells, like cultivated and then printed. And then they're going to have pods you can go into, and they'll just feed you your own meat paste. Oh, man. And if you can actually step out of the pod and go outside, there's going to be so many data centers around the world that you're just going to hear this whoa, 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 whoa. And you're going to feel like you're vibrating in some type of 6G soup. Terahertz beams all over the place, satellites shooting down gigahertz. I mean, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. Food, food isn't grown. Food is grown. It doesn't just come from the store. Yeah, pretty interesting. Yeah, sounds delicious, right? I actually saw an article after talking about that. There was a company there was some startup company that was going to make steaks out of people's own stem cells. And I was like, oh, that's weird. All right, be the change you want to see, everybody. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it.